Good morning, good morning. I'm out in the backyard today. I got some coffee in my hands. I noticed as I started my Instagram live this morning that I make that same hungry dog face every time I reach for my coffee, where I do this thing where I stick out my tongue. Let's see if I do it this time. It's something like that. That's crazy. I'm trying to entrain myself out of it, but whatever. That's me. Anyway, today I wanted to do a follow-up video to what happens when I meditate, including the brainwave states, and this time go a little bit deeper into other brainwave states that we didn't get to touch on in my last video, and also the topic of why am I so tired during my coronavirus quarantine, and is there any value to this really quiet, introspective time that we have the potential for right now? So, to begin with, we'll walk through the brainwave states again. Last video, we only talked about beta and alpha. This time, we'll talk about theta predominantly. We also have delta, we also have gamma. We won't spend so much time focused on those. But for the sake of understanding, if we were to hook up electrodes to measure our brain waves, they would print out on something called an EEG, an electroencephalogram. I always get that confused with the other one for the heart. But anyway, we'd print it out, and if we were looking at brainwave states that were beta state, they would have a lot of peaks and valleys. They would look like the Rocky Mountains. They'd have super high highs, super low lows, and really, really densely clustered. That's where we spend a lot of our day. This is where we come to solve problems, to have complex conversations, to maybe not be super relaxed when we're talking to our boss, something like that. The next one down, once the brain starts to relax, if we were starting to close our eyes and meditate, or we had on some really nice music that we were jamming to, or even like sitting down painting or creating something, we would dip into the alpha state. And the alpha state, rather than being like the Rocky Mountains, they would be more like the Appalachian Mountains, where it's still a mountain range. The brain is still very active. Even during meditation, the brain is still quite active. But the peaks wouldn't be quite so high. The valleys wouldn't be quite so low. And they would be a lot more diffuse. They would be less densely clustered than in the beta brainwave state. So taking another step lower, so now we have beta, alpha, now we're at theta. Theta is really cool. If you remember the old movie Clueless, I'm in my 30s, so Clueless was super cool when I was a teenager. One of the characters, Ty, walks over to a fountain and she goes, "Rollin' with the homies." That is our theta brainwave state. And rather than it being like a mountain range, it's more like pretty foothills up in North and South Dakota, for example. The peaks aren't quite so high, the valleys aren't quite so low, and they're more like beautiful rolling hills than mountains. You probably wouldn't see them and qualify them as mountains. And this is the brainwave state that we dip into every night while we sleep, and also during special, longer meditation practices like yoga nidra. We're able to spend some more time there and be a little bit more conscientious of how we downregulate the body. And we also have a practice around staying awake and aware, holding ourselves in that brainwave state. But this theta state is one that we visit every single night while we sleep. If you can remember back to learning about REM cycles, the rapid eye movement cycles that we go through while we sleep, they're about 90 minutes in length. And for 3 of those 90 minutes, the first time around, you'll spend your time in theta brainwave state. The interesting thing about this is the longer we sleep and the more visitations we have to go around the cycle of that rapid eye movement cycle, that 90-minute cycle, that 3 minutes in the theta state will start to stretch. First round is 3 minutes. Second round, let's say, is 4 or 5 minutes. Third time around, maybe it's 7 to 9 minutes. And throughout our time asleep, we get more and more and more collective time in this brainwave state, which is one, why it's really important to get enough sleep every night. But two, it's also important because this is where we come to do a lot of healing. This is the place where we start to create new neural pathways, more pathways along which positive thoughts can run and move a little bit quicker. This is also the place where we have synaptic pruning that I'll talk about in a moment, but we're clearing out the clutter of neural pathways that we no longer want to have. And our bodies do that automatically. They know which thoughts are harmful to us in the long run, and the ones that we would be best served by getting rid of. It's a pretty cool process. So if you're into habit change or really making the most of this quarantine, synaptic pruning might be an area that you want to do a little bit more research or a little bit more digging around for information. But when I say synaptic pruning, I mean very similarly to being in your garden outside or being in your backyard, where you might prune back the hedges or trim down unruly bushes or whatever you have back there. And the synaptic part of that phrase refers to the synapses, the junctures in our brain and in our mind space along which thought forms travel. And you can think of these neural pathways, these synapses, as being grooves in the dirt. If you've ever gotten your car stuck in the mud, I have an Elantra, so it gets stuck in the Louisiana mud because it rains so much here. I've had to make a lot of neighbor friends on the fly, getting my car stuck places. But these pathways of these commonly thoughts get really deep, and they need the gardeners to come in and to fill in all those tire markings and kind of flatten things out. And this happens automatically while we sleep. This process of synaptic pruning is, we can liken it to gardeners coming by. But these gardeners only come at night because they need to come during the theta brainwave state. They need to come at a time where there's not too much activity going on. There's no dog running through the yard. They don't have to dodge toys or children. So these gardeners, these glial gardeners in the brain, come at night. And they prune back unruly thoughts. They lay down paving stones for brand new neural pathways that all of your positive thoughts can run along. And they even turn on the sprinklers. They turn on the sprinklers. The sprinklers are, on the biological level, cerebrospinal fluid that runs through the canals of your brain that create, or that are created as the brain relaxes, as it can soften up and these grooves reform. They're there always, but think of it as like when you finally get to relax after a day and your feet unswell. It's similar to that. Once your brain's not being used so much, the swelling goes down. There's space for cerebral spinal fluid to move through the brain, physically sweeping away gunky proteins that have built up, and even sweeping away mental thoughts that really aren't so helpful to us anymore. And so in a nutshell, that's our synaptic pruning that happens. And so if you've been questioning, why the heck am I so tired? I'm not doing anything, I'm quarantined, there's nothing going on. Well, maybe you're not consciously aware that you're doing something, but you really are. And this is a unique opportunity that we have to move away from having so much of our focus tied up in busier brainwave states where we need to produce, we need to appease a boss, and we get to be a little more introspective, maybe even do some of the heavier lifting on big T traumas, really notable events that happened in our lives, and even little T traumas, things that maybe weren't so notable, things maybe we don't even recall readily that happened to us, that have still left an energetic stamp, an energetic residue on us that is just asking to be cleared out. So if you are tired, that's totally valid. My encouragement would be to take some time, develop a meditation practice, get audios on YouTube, such as the ones that I make, such as the ones that other people make. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if you use mine or if you use someone else's. Find ways to give your body and your mind what it's looking for. Another thing I wanted to touch on briefly is this theta brainwave state is the one that we travel to during hypnosis. So children will really readily dip into alpha and theta brainwave states. Think about how kids react if you stick them in front of a TV and they just they zone out. They get totally enraptured in what's going on the screen. And we might maybe be charmed by it. I think it's creepy, but we're kind of enchanted by how readily they slip into these altered states. It is an altered state. But adults do the same thing, which means that if I were plopping down in front of the television, I would be altering my state of consciousness too. We seek it out for that reason. We seek out music for that reason. So I see often on different, let's say Instagram accounts, for example, that'll say, it's okay if the only thing that you did today was watch Netflix or did nothing. And while that is okay, certainly forgivable, certainly understandable, my encouragement would be to be mindful of what you're programming in, with the awareness that we are really receptive in these brainwave states. You wouldn't show up to a hypnotherapist for addressing a fear. Let's say your fear is flying. I'm not a fan of it. But you wouldn't show up to the hypnotherapist and have them listening to a Law and Order episode in the next room where they're discussing a murder. It wouldn't be a kind thing to program into your subconscious mind when you are in a highly suggestible state. So, those are a couple of things to take forth with you. Beta, alpha, theta brainwave states, what we do during the night when we visit that theta brainwave state, and those glial gardeners come in to clear out all of the clutter and debris and shave back all of those bad thoughts, all of those unhelpful thoughts that we all have at night. We have them during the day. We also have them at night. They're trying their best to get rid of them. There's a lot of work to do back there. And being mindful of what you are programming in. And if you are one of those folks that's totally tired during quarantining, knowing that good things are coming out of it and you can help promote those good things coming out of it. All right, friends, until next time, as I try not to spill my coffee all over my chair, I love you. I love you so very much. You are the joy of my day. Drop me a line, drop me something in the comments, help this video get shared. I love you so much. Until next time.